Hi everybody! Welcome back to Kids Video Connection YouTube tutorials. Today we're going to be talking about lighting and everything that you're going to need to know to do a basic lighting setup, and also I'm going to give you all a few tips and tricks to elevate your at-home lighting situations if you don't necessarily have bright lights to work with. I'm going to show you how to use natural light as well. So let's get started into the video. Now, before we talk about anything about lighting, we need to talk about who on set actually handles the lights and why that job is so important. The director has the full say of the lights that they want on set, but it's not the director who necessarily chooses that. It's actually the cinematographer. Now, the cinematographer has a lot of positions, but lighting is something that they have to know very, very well. Some of the most famous cinematographers are known most famously for the beautiful light that they're able to create in their films. The cinematographer isn't able to do lighting setups all by themselves. Sometimes on set you'll see up to 300 lights or even more than that. I mean, lights can go all from the lights that are shown on screen to lights that you never even knew were used to create that look of the film. The gaffer, the best boy or the best girl, the grips, all of these exist under the grip and electric department. So the grip and electricians are the people that manage how the lights are set up, who is actually carrying the lights or carrying equipment across the stage, who is actually plugging the lights in and making sure they work and making sure that they're not blowing out circuits. I mean, these are all super important positions. That's the amazing thing about making films, is there's so many positions that you would literally never even think of. Maybe you want to learn more about lighting. Well, maybe you might want to be a gaffer one day. Maybe you like how you can create new lighting setups, and maybe you like to build things. Maybe you could be a grip. You know, these are all super important parts of the filmmaking process. So let's talk a little bit more about what are the different lighting setups and how can you use them. So the first thing that you all are going to need to know about lighting is the most basic setup that comes with lighting, and that is the 3-point lighting system. 3-point lighting system is a lighting system where you have 3 main sources of light. Those 3 main sources of light are called the key light, the fill light, and the backlight. So the key light is the main source of light for your character, right? So the key light is what is going to be giving you the most powerful light. Now, this could change depending on how you want to stylize your film, but mostly the key light is the light that's shining directly in front of your character. So the fill light is actually named after what it really does, which is filling in the shadows. You may get some harsh shadows when you're using that key light right onto your subject. So let's say if my light is coming from one side of my face, most of the light is going to be shining on one half of my face. The fill light will be placed on the opposite side of the key so that it's filling in the shadows that the key creates. And then we have the backlight. The backlight is the light that creates some depth in the background. Your backlight could just simply be something splashing onto the wall, or it could be splashing onto your head. We call this the hair light, or you know, the backlight might actually be splashing onto the wall itself. But the backlight, the purpose of the backlight is just to give some depth between the background and your main subject. So for my lighting setup right now, I don't have many lights. I just have one key light, but I have a lot of ambient light in the room. And also, this room is made of mostly white walls, so that key light is able to bounce across all the walls. So instead of pointing the light directly at my face, what I'm doing is I'm bouncing it up onto the white ceiling, which is bouncing back and also spilling out onto my face. So it kind of creates this light all around me where I don't necessarily have to use multiple lights to get a good even light onto my face so that you all can see me clearly. That's the 3-point lighting system. A lot of productions use this lighting system day to day to create an even look, or just a lighting setup that's easy to see, easy to read. You know who's talking, you can see your characters nice and clearly, right? But what if you want to create some depth? What if you want to stylize your film a little bit more? What if you're making a drama and you want it to be dark, but you still want to see your character? What do you do then, and how do you create that look across camera? Say you are creating a silhouetted look. Well, instead of your key light being the strongest light, your backlight will most likely be the strongest light. But in any instance, you're usually going to be using a key, a fill, and a backlight, even if it's just a small little bit of fill, or a large bit of backlight, or a large bit of fill. Either way, you're always going to be using these types of lighting situations with whatever type of mood you're going for. Now we're going to be getting into ways that you can rework light into making the light look how you want it to look. Two of my favorite tools to use whenever I'm working with lights is, first thing is diffusion, and the second thing is bounce. Kind of like I said earlier, bounce is what I'm using right now, right? So I have my key light bouncing off of the ceiling, which is a white ceiling. And that's the thing about bounce. You're usually going to want to find something that's completely white. So you could get like a white foam board from the craft store. You can get a white sheet that you use on your bed. You could use anything that is white that could bounce light from one source onto you. So that's a great way to soften the light so it's not as harsh. I'm going to show you all the difference between bouncing the light from the ceiling and then directly onto my face, and you all can tell the difference. So now the light is coming directly onto my face. It's behind my camera, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on because the light is literally directly in front of my face. So this is something you may want to consider if you're going to have actors on your film. You know, you don't want to shine a light directly into their eyes so that they can't see. So instead, you may want to try bouncing the light. And another thing that is super important is diffusion. Now I'm going to change my lighting setup back, but I'm going to take the diffusion off of this light so that you can see what the diffusion looks like. So first, here is my key light without any diffusion. You know, it's super bright. It's literally almost blinding to look at because there's so much light. But I have this sheet of diffusion here that I put on top of the light. So the sheet of diffusion doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could literally just be a sheet of cloth. If you don't have a white sheet that you use on your bed, you can use an old white t-shirt, anything that will literally soften the light but doesn't block the light. You just want something that the light can be seen through. So I'm going to put this diffusion back up so you can tell the difference. So here's my setup now with the diffusion, and I'm going to show you the setup again with the light bouncing. And here's my setup with the light bouncing off of the ceiling. So I'm sure you all can tell the difference between each of these slides. You know, one light is a little bit harsher than the other, but of course at the end of the day, it's totally up to you. What do you want your film to convey? If you want your character to look like he's looking in the sun and it's super harsh, then maybe you could actually, you know, use a light shining directly into the character's face. Or maybe you just want it to look simple like an interview like I have right now. You might want to soften the light and make it not as harsh on the interviewee so that they're able to look at the person that's interviewing them nice and clearly. So these are things to consider when you're looking at lights. Now, I get it. You know, I didn't have lights until just recently, believe it or not. So I totally understand if you don't have lights to work with. So in that case, I'm gonna show you all what it's like to shoot without lights. You can use the exact same setup when you're shooting outside or when you're shooting through a window. So let's say you don't necessarily have, studio lights to work with. Is it okay to work with your table lamps? Is it okay to work with your floor lamps? What can you use? And the answer is yes, for anything. You can use any type of light for your film setup. Now, most productions will have a specific color temperature of light, and this is either called daylight or tungsten light. Now, most of the lights in your house are tungsten lights. And tungsten lights are a little bit warmer than daylight, even though we usually think of the sun as, this orangey, yellowish color for our eyes. The sun is actually super, super blue compared to the lights that are in the house. When you're picking out light bulbs, you may want to pick out lights that are daylight light bulbs if you're going for a recreation of the sun. Now, if you're going for a interior scene, you might just want to pick out some regular tungsten light bulbs. You can find either of these light bulbs at your local store, and you can interchange them with any lights that you have at home, and you can create a totally different look depending on what you're going for. That's a little bit more technical. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you just want to use your lights that you have available to you, by all means, go ahead and use them, because at the end of the day, you just want to be able to see your characters. When it comes to shooting with natural light, you're going to want to remember what we talked about earlier. Using bounce and using diffusion are super important when it comes to shooting with the sun, especially if it's on a super sunny day. The sun can be very harsh at times, and not only do you want to protect your characters or whoever you're interviewing, but you also don't want the character to have super harsh shadows on their face. So similar like I did earlier, I had a sheet of diffusion that I put in front of my light. Well, you can do that with your window as well, just by using a sheer curtain, or you can hang up a sheer sheet that you don't have to show on camera. You want to make sure you show it off camera, but you can include that level of diffusion so that your character doesn't look as harsh on camera. Say you have a window on this side, but you are losing light on this side. Maybe it's too bright on this side of the face. It's too shadowy on this side of the face. So what you can do is bring in your foam piece of white foam board, place it next to your character here on this side so that the sunlight is bouncing from the window to the board and then onto the character's face. And I'm gonna include a picture right here so that you can see what I'm talking about. This is a great example of what I mean. So I hope this video helped. I hope you were able to learn a little bit more about lighting. Please check out those videos that I'm including in the description so that you can dive a little bit more if you might want to become a gaffer one day or a cinematographer. So this is actually going to be the last video in the series. I hope I've been able to help you all kickstart your filmmaking journey a little bit further. I hope this camp is really inspiring you and teaching you all the possibilities that there are out there in the filmmaking industry. And I hope that one day I see you all out there alongside me doing some filming. So stay safe, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the camp, and I can't wait to see you all's films come to life. So, bye.